The metallic click echoed through the hallway like a gunshot. Cold steel tightened around 10-year-old wrists. Too tight. The kind of tight that leaves marks for days. Rosalie Kingsley didn't scream. She couldn't. Her voice had vanished the moment Officer Drake's rough hands grabbed her shoulders and spun her around against the locker. The same way it always vanished, when terror wrapped its fingers around her throat. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. 30 smartphones, 40, 50, all aimed at her face. Recording, broadcasting, sharing. Thief. Foster trash. Daddy's money can't save you now. The voices blurred together into a roar. Rose's vision tunneled. The fluorescent lights above burned too bright. The smell of floor wax and expensive cologne choked her. Her shoulder jerked involuntarily. The tic disorder she'd fought so hard to control betrayed her now when she needed stillness most. Principal Vivian Harlow stood 3 feet away, arms crossed over her burgundy blazer. Her lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Her eyes held no warmth. They held something else. Something ancient and cold. Officer Drake, please escort Miss Kingsley to the security office. We'll need to contact her guardian. Guardian, not father, not parent. Guardian. The word tasted like metal in Rose's mouth. Drake's hand clamped harder on her arm. The handcuffs bit deeper. A thin line of blood appeared where the edge cut skin. Rose stared at it, red against pale. Real. This was real. I didn't. Her voice came out as a whisper, broken glass scraping concrete. Please, I didn't take anything. No one heard, or no one cared. The crowd parted as Drake pulled her forward. 200 students, maybe more. All watching, all recording. Rose's worn sneakers squeaked against polished marble. Left foot, right foot, each step felt like walking through water. A girl with platinum blonde hair laughed. Scarlett Whitmore, 17 years old, daughter of the Whitmore dynasty. Old money, real power. Can't believe she thought she could just steal from me, Scarlett said loud enough for everyone to hear. Her voice dripped with practiced sympathy. I actually felt sorry for her. You know, being an orphan and all, but this... The murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Of course they did. Scarlett Whitmore didn't lie. Scarlett Whitmore was Riverside Academy royalty. Rose Kingsley was just the charity case. Drake shoved her forward. Rose stumbled. Her knee hit the floor. Hard. The pain shot up her leg, but she barely felt it. Everything had gone numb 3 minutes ago when they'd found the watch in her locker. The Patek Philippe, $18,000. Rose had never touched anything worth more than $20 in her entire life. But there it was, in her locker, wrapped in tissue paper, like a gift she'd never asked for. Get up, Drake growled. Rose got up. 2 seconds of darkness flashed behind her eyes. A memory, 3 years old, but fresh as yesterday. Different hands, different handcuffs, same helplessness. St. Agnes Home for Children. The punishment closet. 48 hours in the dark because she'd hidden bread under her mattress. 48 hours of nothing but her own breathing and the scratch of rats in the walls. I said move. Drake yanked her arm. Rose's feet obeyed even as her mind screamed to run, to fight, to do something. But 10-year-old girls don't fight men who weigh 200 pounds. They just survive. The hallway stretched endlessly. Every locker door looked the same. Every face in the crowd blurred together. Someone laughed. Someone else gasped. A teacher stood against the wall doing nothing. Then the door to the main office exploded open. Garrett Kingsley moved like a storm, 6'2", custom-tailored suit. The kind of presence that made rooms go quiet. His face had gone white, not pale, white. Like every drop of blood had drained into his shoes. His eyes found Rose. Time stopped. Get those off my daughter. The words came out like thunder. Drake actually stepped back. Principal Harlow's mouth fell open. Garrett closed the distance in 4 strides and his hands were already reaching for the handcuffs. Sir, you can't. I said get them off. Garrett's fingers fumbled with the lock. His hands shook. Rose had never seen her father's hands shake. He built tech empires. He negotiated billion-dollar deals. His hands didn't shake. The cuffs clicked open. Rose's wrists fell free. Garrett reached for her shoulders. Rose, are you? She flinched. Actually flinched, jerked backward like he tried to hit her instead of help her. Garrett's hands froze in midair. His face crumpled. Just for a second. Just long enough for Rose to see the hurt flash across his eyes before he swallowed it down. Don't touch me. Rose's voice came from somewhere far away, hollow, empty. Please don't touch me. She wrapped her arms around herself. The familiar spasm rippled through her shoulder. Her breath came too fast, too shallow. Garrett stood there, his arms still half raised, looking at his daughter like she was made of glass, and he just watched her shatter. Rose. But Rose was already backing away. 3 steps, 4. Then she turned and ran. Her sneakers slapped against marble. The crowd blurred past. She heard Garrett call her name, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Had to get away. Had to hide. She burst through the main doors into cold November air. The Rolls-Royce waited at the curb. Harrison Burke stood beside it, Garrett's assistant. He saw Rose and immediately moved toward her, but she shook her head violently. No, no, no. Rose veered left, down the sidewalk, past the perfect hedges and the bronze statue of Riverside's founder. Her chest burned. Her vision swam. Somewhere behind her, Garrett was still calling. But Rose couldn't hear him anymore over the roar of blood in her ears, and the voice in her head screaming that this was St. Agnes all over again. That they'd send her back, that she'd done something wrong even though she hadn't, that no one would ever believe her because no one ever believed the foster kid. She ran until her legs gave out. Then she sat on the cold concrete behind the equipment shed and wrapped her arms around her knees and didn't cry. Because crying didn't help. It never had. 72 hours earlier. Rose Kingsley sat at the massive dining table in the Kingsley mansion. The table could seat 20, only 2 chairs were ever used. Hers at the far end, Garrett's at the other, 18 feet of polished mahogany between them. Mrs. Rosa had made pot roast. The smell filled the dining room. Rich, warm, the kind of meal that should have felt like home. Rose ate in silence, small bites, careful chewing. Her eyes stayed on her plate. Garrett's chair sat empty. He was working. Again. 3rd night this week, the housekeeper had left his dinner, covered on the kitchen counter with a note about reheating instructions he wouldn't read. Rose finished half her portion, enough to be polite, not enough to seem greedy. She had learned the rules at St. Agnes. Take too little and they say you're ungrateful. Take too much and they call you a pig. The sweet spot was always somewhere in the middle. She wrapped the other half in a napkin, carefully, making sure not to let any gravy drip. Then she slipped it into her backpack hanging on the chair beside her. Mrs. Rosa walked in with dessert, apple pie, Rose's favorite. Kate used to make it every Sunday before she got sick. No thank you, Mrs. Rosa. I'm full. That was a lie. Rose was never full, but she'd learned that lying was sometimes necessary for survival. Mrs. Rosa's eyes went soft. She didn't say anything, just nodded and took the pie back to the kitchen. Rose climbed the stairs to her room. 17 steps. She counted them every time. 17 steps between the warm kitchen and her cold bedroom. The room was huge, bigger than the entire sleeping quarters at St. Agnes. California king bed, walk-in closet, private bathroom with marble floors, everything a little girl could want. Except it wasn't her room. It was a guest room where they'd put her things. Rose set her backpack on the desk, unzipped it, pulled out the napkin with pot roast. She crossed to the bookshelf and moved 3 books aside. Behind them was a plastic container, the kind meant for cereal. She'd been filling it for 6 months. Crackers, bread crusts, wrapped cheese slices, half-eaten sandwiches. Anything that wouldn't spoil too fast. Anything she could hide. Rose added tonight's pot roast to the collection. Then she put the books back, perfectly aligned. No one could tell. Her phone buzzed. A text from Garrett, sent 4 minutes ago. Rose had watched it come in during dinner but hadn't checked it until now. Working late. Sorry. Harrison will drive you to school tomorrow. Rose typed back. Okay. She waited 5 minutes. No response. She tried again. Can I talk to you about something? 3 minutes. Nothing. Dad. That word still felt strange in her mouth. Foreign. Like a language she'd never quite learned. It's important. 10 minutes passed. Then, can it wait? Big meeting in the morning. Rose stared at the screen. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. They're planning something bad at school. I heard Scarlett and her friends talking. They said. Her phone rang. Rose's heart jumped. She answered immediately. Hello. Rose. Garrett's voice sounded distracted. Distant. She heard keyboard clicks in the background. Listen, sweetie, I'm really in the middle of something here. Whatever's going on with your classmates, just talk to Mrs. Rosa about it, okay? Or one of your teachers. But I have to go. Harrison will pick you up at 7:45. Don't be late. Please listen, I'm scared. They said they're going to click. He had hung up. Rose sat on her bed. The phone felt heavy in her hand. Outside her window, the Boston skyline glittered. Thousands of lights, millions of people, all of them closer to Garrett Kingsley than his own daughter. She opened her desk drawer. Inside was a photograph. Kate Kingsley, blonde hair, bright smile, thin arms wrapped around Rose at St. Agnes 2 years ago. Rose had been 8, small for her age, scared of everything. Kate had knelt down to her level and said, You know what? You remind me of me when I was little. Want to be friends? No adult had ever asked Rose to be friends before. They'd visited every week after that. Kate and Garrett. Kate would bring books and read to Rose for hours. Garrett would sit awkwardly in the corner checking his phone. But he came. He showed up. Then Kate got sick. Cancer. Fast. Brutal. 6 months from diagnosis to death. Rose had visited her in the hospital. Kate's skin had gone gray. Her hair had fallen out. But she'd still smiled when Rose walked in. Promise me something, Kate had whispered, her voice like paper. You're going to live with Garrett after I'm gone. He's going to adopt you. I made him promise. Why? Rose had asked. He doesn't like me. He does. He just doesn't know how to show it. Give him time. Okay. Rose had nodded. Kate died 3 days later. Garrett kept his promise. He filed the paperwork, brought Rose home, gave her a room and clothes and everything she'd never had. Everything except what she needed most. Him. Rose put the photograph back, closed the drawer. She pulled out her backpack again. This time, she reached into the secret pocket Kate had sewn into the lining 18 months ago. Her fingers found the old smartphone, Kate's insurance policy. Rose remembered the day Kate had given it to her. The hospital room had smelled of antiseptic and dying flowers. Kate's hand had been so thin in the bones visible under papery skin. Listen carefully, baby girl. Kate's voice had been barely audible. I'm putting this phone in a secret pocket. Nobody knows it's there, not even Garrett. Kate had shown her how to activate the camera, how to position it to record through fabric or vents. If anyone ever hurts you at your new school, you hide this in your locker. See these vent slots? The camera can record right through them if you position it correctly. Just press this button before you leave. It'll record everything that happens near your locker. Why would someone hurt me? Because people fear what's different. And you're special, Rose. Different. Some people won't like that. Kate had coughed, blood on the tissue. If they try to hurt you, you record it. Evidence matters more than words. Promise me you'll use this if you need it. I promise. Rose turned the phone on now. The battery was still good. Kate had made sure it would last. Tomorrow was Friday. 3 more days until Monday. 3 more days to figure out what Scarlett Whitmore was planning. And if her instincts were right, if they were really coming for her, she'd be ready. Friday morning arrived wrapped in grey clouds. Harrison Burke pulled the Rolls-Royce up to Riverside Academy at exactly 7:45. Rose sat in the back seat, silent. Her backpack felt heavier than usual. Before leaving her room, she'd activated the phone's camera, positioned it in the secret pocket so the lens faced outward through a small tear in the fabric. Then, she'd placed the backpack in her locker, adjusting it so the phone faced the hallway through the vent slots, just like Kate had taught her. "Have a good day, Miss Rosalie." Rose climbed out. The November air bit through her thin jacket. The smell of wet leaves and car exhaust filled her nose. She should have worn something warmer, but all her warm clothes were hand-me-downs from charity drives, and she was tired of the other kids noticing. Riverside Academy looked like a castle, red brick, ivy-covered walls, Gothic architecture that screamed old money and older traditions. The kind of place where your last name mattered more than your first. Rose walked through the main entrance. The hallways smelled like floor wax and expensive perfume. The heating system hummed, making the air stuffy and warm. Lockers lined both sides. Each one cost more than Rose's entire wardrobe. She turned left toward her locker. Number 304. Third hallway. Fourth row. Scarlett Whitmore stood 20 feet away, surrounded by her usual crowd. Madison, Brittany, the twins, whose names Rose could never remember, and Callum Ashford, 18 years old, senior, captain of the lacrosse team, Scarlett's boyfriend, the kind of guy who'd never looked at Rose before this week. But this week, he'd looked at her 3 times, and Rose had learned at St. Agnes that when predators start paying attention, bad things follow. She kept her head down, moved quickly to her locker. The metal was cold under her fingers. She spun the combination, left, right, left. The lock clicked. She opened the door just enough to grab her geometry textbook. The backpack sat inside angled perfectly. The phone's lens faced outward through the vent slots. Recording. Rose grabbed what she needed, closed the locker, locked it. She didn't see Callum watching her, didn't see him noting the combination as she spun it. But the phone saw. The phone saw everything. 1:13 in the morning. The Kingsley mansion sat silent except for the grandfather clock in the hallway. Its steady tick-tock the only sound. Garrett lay in his study, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. His phone sat on his chest. 14 missed calls from Rose. 6 voicemails he hadn't listened to. He'd been working. Important merger. Time sensitive. He'd tell her tomorrow. Explain. She'd understand. A sound broke the silence. Soft. Barely there. The creak of a cabinet opening downstairs. Garrett sat up. Checked the time. 1:15 now. Who was in the kitchen? He stood. Crossed the hallway in bare feet. The hardwood was cold. Reached for the kitchen door. The light was on but dim. The automatic dimmer kept it low at night. Garrett pushed the door open. What he saw would stay with him forever. Rose knelt beside the garbage can. Her small hands elbow deep in trash. Orange peels, coffee grounds, empty containers. The sharp smell of rotting food filled the air. She found something, a piece of bread, days old, crusts torn off, probably from Tuesday's lunch. She pulled it out, brushed off the coffee grounds, brought it toward her mouth. Garrett's voice came out strangled. "Rose!" She jerked like she'd been shot. The bread fell. A glass bottle rolled out of the garbage and shattered on the tile. The sound like a gunshot in the quiet house. Rose scrambled backward. Her spine hit the cabinet. Her hands flew up to cover her ears. Her mouth opened in a silent scream. No sound came out. Just that horrible empty silence of someone whose voice has been scared away. Her whole body trembled. The tick in her shoulder worse than Garrett had ever seen it. Garrett stood frozen, his bare feet inches from broken glass, his mind trying to process what he'd just seen. His daughter eating from garbage, in a house with 3 refrigerators, a walk-in pantry, more food than they could eat in a year.
Rose, what? He took a step forward.
Glass crunched under his foot. He didn't notice. She flinched, actually recoiled like he'd raised his hand to hit her. Garrett stopped, his heart cracking down the middle. The fridge is full. Why are you? He couldn't even finish the sentence. The smell of garbage clung to everything. Why are you eating from the trash? Rose's hands slowly lowered from her ears. Her eyes wouldn't meet his. She stared at the broken glass between them. Blood welled up from a small cut on her palm where she'd grabbed the bottle edge. I'm sorry. Her voice barely existed. I didn't mean to wake you. That's not... Garrett swallowed hard. Rose, honey, look at me. Please. She did. Finally. Her eyes were huge, terrified. The eyes of someone who expected punishment. Why are you eating from the garbage? I'm scared. Scared of what? If I take real food, you'll send me back. The words hit Garrett like a physical blow. Send you back to where? St. Agnes. Rose's voice shook. They said if I take too much, if I'm greedy, if I'm bad, you'll send me back. And at St. Agnes, we only ate twice a day, sometimes once. So I saved things. Just in case. Garrett's knees nearly gave out. He gripped the counter edge. The granite was cold under his palms. Who said I'd send you back? Everyone at school, they say foster kids are temporary. That rich people only take us for tax breaks. That when you get tired of me, stop. Garrett's voice came out hoarse. Rose, stop. That's not... I would never... But the words died in his throat. Because hadn't he been treating her exactly like that? Temporary and obligation. Something to be managed between board meetings and conference calls. Garrett slowly lowered himself to the floor. 5 feet from Rose. Not too close. Not touching. Just sitting. So their eyes were level. The cold tile seeped through his pajama pants. Listen to me very carefully. You are not going back to St. Agnes. Ever. You are not temporary. You are not a tax break. You are my daughter. Rose stared at him. Tears streamed down her face. Silent. She didn't bother wiping them. Then why don't you... She stopped, swallowed, started again. Why don't you ever talk to me? Why don't you look at me? Why do I feel like a stranger in this house? Every word was a knife. Garrett opened his mouth, closed it. What could he say? That he'd been too busy, too wrapped up in work, too consumed by grief over Kate to notice the living, breathing child right in front of him who needed him. He struggled for words. I've been a terrible father. Rose didn't argue. Your mother, Kate, she would be so ashamed of me right now. She told me to give you time. Rose's voice was flat, empty. She said you didn't know how to show you cared, but it's been 6 months and you still haven't shown me anything except money. Garrett's chest felt like it was caving in. The smell of garbage and coffee grounds made his stomach turn. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Be a father, especially to a daughter I didn't. To someone who... He couldn't say it. That Kate had surprised him with the adoption papers. That he'd signed them out of guilt and grief. That he'd never planned on being a parent. But Rose understood anyway. She always understood. You didn't want me. That's not true. Yes, it is. Rose pulled her knees to her chest. But it's okay. No one ever wanted me. At least you're honest about it. Rose, I called you yesterday 3 times. I texted. I told you something bad was happening and you said you were too busy. Garrett remembered. The texts, the call, big meeting in the morning. I told you they were planning something. Scarlett and Callum. I heard them. They said they were going to take care of the charity case. I thought you should know. I thought maybe you'd... She stopped. But you hung up. Garrett's blood turned to ice. What did they do? They're going to frame me. I don't know how yet, but I heard them. They want me gone. She said it so calmly, like it was just another Thursday. Garrett's hands clenched into fists. Why didn't you tell me immediately when I came to the school? I tried to, but you tried to touch me and I... Rose wrapped her arms around herself. At St. Agnes, when adults touched you, it was never good. So I ran. And when I got home, you weren't here. You never are. Every word landed like a hammer blow. Garrett stared at this small broken girl who'd tried so hard to get his attention, who'd called for help and been ignored, who'd been traumatized while he'd been in a conference room arguing about stock options. "I'm sorry." The words felt pathetically inadequate. The kitchen was too quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. "Rose, I'm so sorry. Everyone will believe I did something wrong. They always do. Not this time. Not if I can help it." Garrett leaned forward slightly, still not touching. "Tell me everything. What exactly did you hear?" Rose hesitated. Then she started talking. She told him about Scarlett's whispered conversations, about Callum watching her, about feeling like prey. Garrett listened to every word, and with each sentence his face grew harder, more focused. The CEO returning, the man who'd built an empire from nothing. "Do you have any way to prove what they're planning?" Rose's eyes flickered to her backpack on the chair. Maybe Kate gave me something before she died. A phone with a camera. She told me to use it if I needed evidence. Garrett's breath caught. "Did you?" "I put it in my locker this morning. It's recording now. If they do what I think they're going to do, the phone will see it." Garrett stared at his daughter, this child he'd underestimated, who'd been preparing for war while he'd been ignoring the signs. "Rose, that's brilliant." She blinked. "It is. Yes. Evidence. Hard proof. That's what wins cases." He stood, held out his hand. "Come on, let's clean up this glass. Then we need to talk strategy." Rose looked at his hand, then at his face, making a calculation, a choice. Slowly, she reached up, her small fingers wrapped around his. For the first time in 6 months, father and daughter touched without fear between them. Garrett gently pulled her to her feet. He found a dish towel, wrapped it carefully around her bleeding palm. The blood had already stopped, but the cut looked painful. "Tomorrow, we'll figure this out together. But tonight, can I make you something to eat? Real food, from the actual kitchen." Rose's lips twitched, almost a smile. "You don't have to. I want to. Please, let me do this one thing right." Rose considered, then nodded. Garrett opened the refrigerator, pulled out eggs, cheese, butter. The cool air felt good after the stuffiness of the kitchen. He made scrambled eggs, burned the first batch. Rose actually laughed. A small sound, rusty from disuse, but real. He tried again, got them right this time. Added cheese, toast, orange juice. The smell of cooking food replaced the stench of garbage. They sat at the massive dining table, not at opposite ends, right next to each other. Rose ate slowly, carefully, like someone who still couldn't quite believe the food was really hers. Garrett watched her. This brave, broken, beautiful child that Kate had loved, that he'd ignored, that he was just now starting to see. "Rose, yeah, I'm going to fix this. All of it. The school, whatever they're planning, everything. I promise you." Rose looked up at him. "Promises are just words. Then I'll prove it with actions." She studied his face for a long moment. The kitchen was warm now, safe. The clock ticked softly. Then she went back to her eggs. But before she took another bite, she said quietly, "Okay, I'll give you one chance." One chance. Garrett would take it. He'd make it count. But first there was something they needed to do. "Rose, tomorrow's going to be hard. If they frame you when they frame you, you might have to talk to people, police, teachers, maybe even a principal. Can you do that?" Rose's face went pale. I don't know. When I'm scared, my voice doesn't work." "Then we practice, right now." Garrett stood, walked to the other side of the kitchen, turned to face her. "Pretend I'm a police officer. You need to tell me you didn't do something. What would you say?" Rose opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She shook her head. "Try. Just one sentence." I can't." "You can. Look at me. Not at the floor. At my eyes." Rose lifted her gaze. "Now say I didn't do it." Rose's mouth moved. The words barely whispered. "I didn't do it." Again, louder. "I didn't do it." "Good. Now say I'm telling the truth. Rose took a breath. I'm telling the truth. Perfect. See, your voice works. It's just scared. We're going to teach it not to be scared. They practiced for an hour. Garrett played different roles. Angry principal, skeptical police officer, mean student. Each time Rose had to respond. At first her voice was barely audible, but slowly it grew stronger. By 2 a.m. she could say full sentences without her voice breaking. I didn't steal anything. Someone is framing me. I have proof. Garrett nodded. That's my girl. Rose's eyes filled with tears. No one's ever called me their girl before. Well, you are. You're my girl. My daughter. And tomorrow, we show them what happens when someone messes with a Kingsley. They cleaned up the kitchen together, threw away the garbage properly, washed the dishes. The normalcy of it felt strange and wonderful. As they climbed the stairs to their rooms, Rose stopped on step 9. Dad. Yay. Thank you for listening. Finally. Garrett's eyes burned. He nodded. Didn't trust his voice. They reached Rose's room. Garrett tucked her into bed for the first time, pulled the blankets up, made sure her glass of water was within reach. Dad, can you leave the door open? Of course. He turned off the light. The hallway light spilled in, pushing back the darkness. Rose touched something at her throat, a silver cross necklace. Garrett hadn't noticed it before. Where did you get that? Kate gave it to me at the hospital. She said it was her grandmother's. Garrett's throat tightened. He'd been looking for that necklace for 18 months. Kate had wanted Rose to have it, and somehow she'd managed to give it to her before. It looks beautiful on you. It makes me feel like she's still here. She is. In you. In the way you're brave even when you're scared. Rose smiled. A real smile, then closed her eyes. Within minutes, her breathing evened out. Sleep. Garrett stood in the doorway, watching his daughter sleep peacefully for what he suspected was the first time in months. Tomorrow would be it. They'd frame her, accuse her, try to destroy her, but they didn't know what Rose had learned at St. Agnes. Survivors don't break. They bend, and then they come back stronger. Saturday morning arrived with weak sunlight filtering through grey clouds. Rose woke to the smell of coffee brewing downstairs. Real coffee, not the instant kind May Rosa usually made. The scent was rich, almost bitter, comforting. She checked her phone. 7:30 a.m. Garrett was awake. That never happened on weekends. Rose dressed quickly, jeans and a sweater Kate had given her. She touched the cross necklace at her throat, a habit now, like checking that her voice was still there. Downstairs, Garrett stood at the kitchen counter. His hair was messy. He wore old jeans and a MIT sweatshirt Rose had never seen before. Not the polished CEO, just a dad. Morning, he said. Want pancakes? You know how to make pancakes. Kate taught me. Fair warning, I'm terrible at them. Rose sat at the counter, watched him pour batter into the pan. The kitchen was warm. The heating vents hummed softly. Outside, Boston was waking up slowly. The first pancake came out lumpy and burnt on one side. See, terrible. Garrett scraped it into the trash. But the second one looked better, golden brown, almost circular. He plated it, added butter and syrup, slid it across to Rose. Eat. Then we have work to do. Rose took a bite. It was good. Not perfect, but good. What kind of work? We're going to get your phone from your locker, see what it recorded. Then we're going to find out exactly what we're dealing with. Rose's stomach tightened. What if it didn't record anything? Then we figure out plan B, but I have a feeling Kate knew exactly what she was doing. They ate in comfortable silence, the clink of forks on plates, the coffee maker gurgling its last drops, the sound of a house that felt less empty than it had yesterday. After breakfast, they drove to Riverside. The school was closed on Saturdays. Empty parking lot, no students, just the massive building sitting like a monument to old money. Garrett had a key, board member privileges. He'd never used it before, never had a reason to, until now. They walked through the empty hallways. Their footsteps echoed. The smell of floor wax was stronger without the cover of perfume and teenage sweat. Rose's hands trembled as they approached her locker. "It's okay," Garrett said softly. "I'm right here." Rose spun the combination. The locker opened. Her backpack sat where she'd left it, positioned perfectly. She pulled out the phone. The battery was at 42%, still recording. Rose pressed stop, then opened the camera roll. 3 video files. Her heart pounded as she pressed play on the first one. The footage was grainy, shot from inside the locker through the vent slots, but clear enough. The timestamp read Thursday, 7:42 a.m. The hallway appeared empty for 30 seconds. Then Callum Ashford walked into frame, looking around nervously, making sure no one was watching. He approached Rose's locker, pulled something from his jacket. The watch, the Patek Philippe, gleaming in the fluorescent light. Callum pulled out a piece of paper. Rose recognized it. Her class schedule. Someone had given it to him, or he'd stolen it from her cubby. He read the locker number, 304. Then he glanced at the paper again. The combination was written there in Scarlett's handwriting. Rose had shown Scarlett her combination weeks ago when Scarlett had asked to borrow a textbook. That's how they'd planned it. That's how they'd known. Callum spun the combination. The lock clicked open. He placed the watch inside, wrapped in white tissue paper. Arranged it carefully on top of the geometry textbook where it would be impossible to miss. Then he closed the locker, checked the hallway again, and walked away. Timestamp 7:44 a.m. The video continued. At 8:15 a.m., Scarlett appeared with her friends. She discovered the watch was missing. Her performance was perfect. Shock, confusion, then anger. The rest played out exactly as Rose remembered. The crowd gathering, Principal Harlow arriving, Officer Drake with the handcuffs. The phone had captured it all. Garrett stared at the screen. His jaw clenched so hard, Rose could see the muscle jumping. "That's evidence of conspiracy," he said quietly. "Evidence tampering, false accusation. That's enough to clear you and charge them." "There's more." Rose pressed play on the second video. This footage was different. Shaky. Handheld. Rose had hidden the phone in the girls' bathroom trash can the day before. Positioned it so it faced the mirror. Scarlett appeared on screen. Alone. Staring at herself in the mirror. She practiced expressions. Shock. Wide eyes. Hand over mouth. Confusion. Furrowed brow. Tilted head. Anger. Narrowed eyes, clenched jaw. She cycled through them, perfecting each one. The audio picked up her muttering to herself. "My watch is gone. Someone took my watch. Oh my God, that's my watch." She was rehearsing, preparing for the performance. When she was satisfied, she checked her phone. A text from Callum. "Done. It's planted." Scarlett smiled. Cold. Calculating, nothing like the sweet girl she pretended to be. "Perfect," she said to her reflection. "Bye-bye charity case." The video ended. Garrett's hands had curled into fists. The tendons stood out on his forearms. That's premeditation. They planned this for days, maybe weeks. "There's one more." Rose's voice was barely above a whisper. The third video was the longest. 2 hours of footage from various angles as Rose had moved the phone around campus. Most of it was useless. Hallway traffic, boarding classes. But at the 47-minute mark, something changed. Rose had hidden the phone in the library, behind a stack of books on the table where Scarlett and her friends always sat during free period. The audio was muffled but clear enough. Scarlett's voice. "My dad's going to be pissed if he finds out I gave you my real watch, Callum." "He won't. Insurance will cover it. You'll get a new one." "But what if they check the serial number?" "They won't. We'll say it was stolen by some random thief. The orphan just happens to be the convenient scapegoat." Madison's voice. "What about Principal Harlow? Won't she investigate?" Scarlett laughed. "Please. Harlow hates scholarship students. She's been looking for an excuse to expel Rose since day one. My dad donated 50,000 last month. She's not going to question anything. 50,000? Brittany sounded shocked. For what? For doing what he tells her. The Whitmore family doesn't like seeing poor kids at Riverside. It ruins the aesthetic. They laughed. The video continued. More damning details. How they'd stolen Rose's combination. How they'd planned to time it perfectly so Rose would be caught with the watch before she even knew it was there. How Principal Harlow had agreed to call Officer Drake immediately to make it as public and humiliating as possible. This whole school runs on money, Scarlett said. Poor kids like Rose don't belong here. We're doing everyone a favor. The video ended. The library around Garrett and Rose felt suffocatingly quiet, just the hum of old heating vents and the tick of an ancient wall clock. Garrett's face had gone from white to red to white again. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, deadly. They have no idea what they've done. Rose looked at him, really looked. For the first time, she saw past the absent father, past the stranger in the expensive suit. She saw something else, rage, pure and focused, but also guilt. This is my fault, Garrett said. I brought you into this world. These people, the parasites who think money gives them the right to destroy children, and I did nothing to protect you from them. You didn't know. I should have known. I should have been paying attention. He turned to Rose. But I'm paying attention now. And they're going to regret ever targeting my daughter. Rose felt something shift, not just between them, inside herself. She wasn't alone anymore. What do we do? First, we secure this evidence, multiple copies, cloud backup, physical drives. We're not taking any chances. Garrett pulled out his phone, started making calls. Within an hour, Harrison arrived with a tech specialist. They created 7 copies of the videos. Encrypted cloud storage, physical drives locked in 3 different safety deposit boxes, evidence that couldn't be destroyed. Now, Garrett said, we need a witness, someone who saw what happened, someone who can testify that the school's official security footage was tampered with. Mr. Hawthorne, Rose said, the security guard, he sees everything, and Kate told me. She said if I ever needed help, find the person nobody notices. Garrett pulled up the school directory on his phone, found Edwin Hawthorne's address. Let's go. The drive took 23 minutes. The neighborhood changed from manicured lawns to cracked sidewalks, from mansions to small houses with peeling paint. Bundled to Edwin Hawthorne's house sat at the end of a dead-end street, pale yellow siding, shutters hanging crooked. But the garden was neat. Someone cared even if they couldn't afford repairs. Rose felt her confidence wavering as they parked across the street. The practice with Garrett had helped. But this was real. This was asking a stranger to risk everything. Remember what we practiced, Garrett said gently. Look at his eyes. Speak clearly. Tell the truth. Rose nodded, touched her cross necklace, took a breath that smelled like old leaves and car exhaust. They crossed the street together, Rose leading, Garrett half a step behind, close enough to catch her if she fell, far enough to let her do this herself. Rose knocked, footsteps inside, slow, heavy. The smell of coffee and old wood drifted through the door cracks. The door opened 6 inches. A chain lock held it. Edwin Hawthorne peered through the gap. 68 years old, grey hair, kind eyes now filled with fear. Miss Kingsley, his voice shook. You shouldn't be here. Rose's throat wanted to close. Her voice wanted to vanish. But she thought of Garrett behind her, of Kate's cross at her throat, of the practice last night. I know, but I need your help. I can't. Please, just 5 minutes. They'll fire me. I need my pension. My wife Eleanor, she's sick. The medical bills. He trailed off, the desperation clear in his voice. Rose looked into his eyes, kept her voice steady even as her hands shook. Mr. Hawthorne, I saw what you did. You kept the backup footage when Principal Harlow told you to delete it. That means you know this is wrong. Edwin stared at her through the gap. The chain lock rattled slightly. Knowing something's wrong doesn't make me brave enough to fix it. You don't have to be brave. You just have to tell the truth. A woman's voice came from inside. weak but clear. Edwin let the child in. Edwin looked back, then at Rose. Then slowly, he unhooked the chain. The door opened. The living room smelled like coffee and old books. Worn furniture that had been carefully maintained. Photographs covering every surface. The heating was on high, making the air almost stuffy. Eleanor Hawthorne sat in a wheelchair by the window. 65, thin, an oxygen tube in her nose, but her eyes were sharp, alert. "Come here, child." Rose approached, knelt beside the wheelchair. The carpet was threadbare under her knees. Eleanor's weathered hand touched Rose's cheek. Her skin was paper thin, dry, but warm. "I see your mama's spirit in you." Rose's breath caught. "You knew Kate. She volunteered at St. Agnes. I worked there 30 years ago, before it got bad, before they started." Eleanor's eyes clouded. "Before they started hurting children instead of helping them." "You worked at St. Agnes." "I did, until I couldn't stomach what was happening anymore. I quit, testified against them in the state investigation. That's why we're poor now. Edwin lost his job because I wouldn't stay quiet. No one hires whistleblowers." Eleanor's voice was matter of fact. No self-pity, just truth. "You saved kids by speaking up." "I tried, but not enough. Not all of them." Eleanor looked at Garrett. "You're the father." It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am." "You haven't been much of one, have you?" Garrett's face reddened, but he held her gaze. "No, ma'am, I haven't. But I'm trying to do better." Eleanor studied him. The silence stretched. The wall clock ticked. Finally she nodded. "Trying counts. Sometimes." She turned back to Rose. "Edwin told me what happened at school. What they did to you. They framed me. I know. I also know my husband has evidence that could help you. And I know he's terrified to use it because we can't afford to lose his pension." Edwin stood near the door, his face anguished, his hands twisting his security cap. "Eleanor." "Hush. I'm not done." Eleanor's hand tightened on Rose's, her grip surprisingly strong. "But here's what I know that trumps everything else. The child is innocent, and if good people stay silent while children suffer, then we're no better than the people at St. Agnes who locked you in that closet for 2 days. Rose's eyes went wide. "How did you know about—" "I was their child. I found you. I'm the one who called it in. I'm the reason you got out." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "But I've carried guilt ever since. Guilt that I didn't do more. Didn't save all of you. Didn't burn that place to the ground myself." Rose couldn't breathe. This woman, this stranger, had saved her life once already. "So no, my husband won't stay silent. Not this time." Eleanor looked at Edwin, her voice firm. "Get the footage. Give it to her father. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Edwin's shoulders sagged, relief and terror mixing on his face. "You're sure?" "I'm dying anyway, Edwin. 6 months if I'm lucky. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. Eleanor said it calmly, like discussing the weather. "I won't spend my last days knowing I let another child suffer." Edwin crossed to a bookshelf, moved 3 books, pulled out a small metal box hidden behind them. Inside was a memory card, smaller than a thumbnail. Security backup from Thursday morning. Everything. Callum planting the watch at 7:44. Rose arriving at 7:52. Principal Harlow in her office at 8:03, deleting the main footage from the system. I kept copying it to this card even as she deleted the originals. She never knew the backup existed. He handed it to Rose. Rose's fingers closed around it. "Evidence, proof, justice. Thank you," she whispered. Garrett stood, pulled out his phone, made a call. "Harrison, I need you to arrange something immediately." He rattled off instructions. Security detail for the Hawthorns, safe house with medical facilities, financial protection, a trust fund to cover Eleanor's treatment and more. Edwin's face went pale. "Sir, we can't accept." "You're not accepting charity, you're accepting protection." Garrett's voice left no room for argument. "The people who framed my daughter won't hesitate to threaten you once they realize what you've done. They already threatened Rose, sent pictures of her through her bedroom window. This isn't a game. Eleanor reached out. Garrett crossed to her. She took his hand. You're Kate's husband. I was. She talked about you when she volunteered at St. Agnes. Said you had a good heart buried under all that work. Eleanor squeezed his hand. Find it again. That girl needs the man Kate fell in love with, not the ghost he became. Garrett's throat worked. He nodded. Eleanor turned to Rose one last time. You have your mama's strength. Use it. Use your voice. Make them listen. Rose stood, bent down, hugged this woman who'd saved her twice now. Eleanor smelled like lavender soap and medicine. She felt fragile, like she might break. But when she hugged Rose back, her arms were strong. I will, Rose promised. They left the Hawthorne house as clouds parted and weak sunlight broke through. The temperature had dropped. Rose's breath made small clouds in the cold air. Garrett drove carefully. The memory card sat in Rose's lap like a talisman. 3 blocks from home, Garrett's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. Kingsley. Heavy breathing. Then a distorted voice. Computer altered. Drop the case, Kingsley. You have no idea what you're up against. I have a pretty good idea. That little orphan isn't worth what's coming. Send her back where she belongs, before someone gets hurt. Rose stiffened in her seat. Is that a threat? Garrett's voice stayed level. It's advice. From someone who knows how this ends. You can't win. Not against us. Watch me. The line went dead. Rose stared at the phone, her face pale. Who was that? Someone panicking. That's good. How is that good? They just threatened us. Because people who are winning don't threaten. They gloat. They're scared. They know we have evidence. He glanced at her. The car smelled like leather and the faint scent of Rose's strawberry shampoo. But they're right about one thing. This is going to get worse before it gets better. What if they do more than threaten? Garrett pulled into their driveway, shut off the engine, turned to face her. The garage was dark and cool around them. Rose, I need you to understand something. I failed you for 6 months. I wasn't there when you needed me, but I'm here now, and I will not let anyone hurt you. Not Principal Harlow, not the Whitmores, not anyone. You can't promise that. Watch me. Something in his voice made Rose believe him. Maybe for the first time, they went inside. Harrison was already there with 3 security specialists. Professional, efficient. They swept the house for bugs, installed cameras, set up a panic room in the basement. The Hawthorns are en route to a secure location, Harrison reported. Medical team standing by. Mr. Hayes has also been contacted and will arrive within the hour. Who's Robert Hayes? Rose asked. Best trial lawyer on the East Coast, Garrett said. If this goes to court, we need someone who fights dirty. An hour later, Robert Hayes arrived. 56 years old. Silver hair, sharp suit, sharper eyes. He moved like a predator, confident, dangerous. He sat at the dining table. The wood still smelled faintly of this morning's pancakes. He reviewed the evidence, watched the videos 3 times, read through everything with the focus of a surgeon. When he finished, he looked at Garrett. This is airtight. The school's legal team won't stand a chance. Good. There's one problem. What? Hayes turned to Rose. His eyes weren't unkind, just honest. You'll have to testify in a public hearing in front of hundreds of people, parents, press, everyone. Rose's stomach dropped. The defense will attack you. They'll bring up St. Agnes. Your behavioral issues, the food hoarding, everything they can use to make you look unstable. I don't have behavioral issues. You have PTSD. Take disorders, documented trauma from St. Agnes. Hayes' voice remained matter of fact. They'll use it, make you seem unreliable. The judge will listen to you, but the court of public opinion is different. They need to see you're credible, sympathetic, strong. Rose looked at Garrett. Can't you just show them the video? Videos can be called into question, Hayes explained. Timestamps allegedly altered. Footage purportedly manipulated. Your testimony makes it real, makes it human, makes it impossible to ignore. I can't. Rose's voice went small.
The dining room felt too big, too cold. I can't stand up in front of all those people. I can barely talk to you. Hayes leaned forward. Rose, I've been doing this for 30 years. I have seen brave people and cowards. You know what makes someone brave?
Not the absence of fear. It's doing the hard thing even when you're terrified. I'm not brave. You investigated your own case. You found witnesses. You built evidence better than most adults could. You did what trained detectives should have done. Hayes met her eyes. That's brave. That's extraordinary. Rose's hands twisted in her lap. Her shoulder wanted to twitch, but she controlled it. Garrett knelt beside her chair. You don't have to do this. We can settle. Make them drop the charges quietly. You never have to face them. But they win, Rose whispered. You win. You get to go to a new school, start over, forget this ever happened. And the next kid, what happens when Scarlett decides another scholarship student doesn't belong? When Principal Harlow frames someone else who doesn't have a billionaire father or secret video evidence? Garrett had no answer. Rose looked at Hayes. If I testify, what happens? You tell the truth, I protect you as much as I can. But it won't be easy. They'll make you relive the worst day of your life in front of strangers. They'll try to break you, make you cry, make you look weak. And if I don't, they probably settle. You walk away, but nothing changes. The system that failed you fails someone else. Rose was quiet for a long time. The house settled around them. The heating kicked on. The refrigerator hummed. Then she said, Kate told me to use my voice. Kate isn't here anymore, Garrett said gently. No, but I am. And I have a voice even if it's scared. Rose looked at Hayes. When's the hearing? Monday, 9 a.m. Then I have 2 days. To do what? Practice, prepare, figure out how to be brave. Hayes smiled, a real smile, warm. I can help with that. Saturday passed in a blur of preparation. Hayes drilled Rose on questions. How to answer, how to stay calm, how to look at the judge instead of the crowd, how to breathe through panic. Rose stumbled through every practice run. Her voice broke, her tics got worse. She wanted to give up a dozen times. But every time she started to quit, she thought about the Hawthorns risking everything to tell the truth. About Kate recording that video while dying. About all the kids at St. Agnes who never got justice. By evening, she could get through a full cross-examination without completely falling apart. Sunday morning, Rose woke early. The house felt heavy, like the air before a storm. The weak winter sunlight barely penetrated the curtains. She found Garrett in the kitchen, making pancakes again, not burning them this time. You're up early, she said. He jumped, flipped a pancake that was actually golden brown. Couldn't sleep. He plated the pancake, started another. Big day tomorrow. Yeah. They stood in silence, the pancake batter sizzling, the coffee maker gurgling. Outside, Boston was quiet, Sunday morning still. Rose, I need to tell you something. She waited. I have been a terrible father. You've said it. Eleanor Hawthorne said it. I know it. He flipped the pancake. This one perfect. But the reason I've been absent isn't because I don't care. Then why? Garrett plated the second pancake, sat down across from her. For once not at opposite ends of the table. The kitchen smelled like butter and vanilla. Kate and I met in college. I was nobody. Poor kid on scholarship, working 3 jobs. She was everything. Rich, beautiful, kind. She saw something in me I didn't see in myself. He poured coffee, didn't drink it, just held the cup. The steam rose in lazy spirals. We built the company together. She handled people. I handled tech. We were partners in everything. Then she got sick. His voice cracked. Cancer. Aggressive. She fought for 6 months. I watched her disappear piece by piece. Rose's throat tightened. 2 weeks before she died, she made me promise to adopt you. She'd been visiting St. Agnes for years. She'd bonded with you, saw herself in you. I didn't understand then, but I promised because I couldn't say no to anything she asked. You adopted me out of obligation. I adopted you out of grief. I thought having you would make me feel closer to Kate. But instead, he finally looked at Rose. Instead, every time I looked at you, I saw everything I'd lost. Kate's project, Kate's kindness, Kate's love, and I couldn't handle it. So I worked, hid in board meetings and mergers, anything to avoid feeling. Tears ran down his face. But these past 2 days, watching you fight, watching you be brave, I finally understand what Kate saw. She didn't want you to replace her. She wanted you to save me, to remind me that life keeps going even when you think it can't. Rose's own tears fell, silent, hot. I don't know how to be a father. I'm going to mess up a lot, but I'm done hiding. Garrett reached across the table, stopped just short of touching her. Will you give me another chance? Not because of Kate, because of us. Rose looked at his outstretched hand, then she took it. One more chance, she whispered. Garrett squeezed her hand, gentle, careful, like she was made of something precious. That's all I need. They sat like that for a long moment, hands connected across the table. The burnt pancake smell from yesterday finally gone. Morning light streaming through windows. Then Rose said, "Can you take me somewhere?" "Where?" "Kate's room. I need to talk to her." Garrett nodded. They climbed the stairs together. Kate's room hadn't changed since she died. Garrett had left everything exactly as it was. Her clothes still hung in the closet. Her books lined the shelves. Her perfume still sat on the dresser. The room smelled faintly of her lavender perfume and old paper. Rose walked in slowly, like entering a church. She went to Kate's vanity, picked up the photograph there. Kate and Garrett on their wedding day, young, happy, full of hope. She was beautiful, Rose Ubaid said. Inside and out, Rose opened the vanity drawer. Inside were Kate's personal things, journals, letters, and a small wooden box. She opened it. Inside was another silver necklace, matching roses, a set. "She wanted you to have both," Garrett said quietly. "But I kept this one, couldn't let it go yet." Rose lifted the second necklace, identical to hers, but slightly larger. This was hers. She wore it every day. Her grandmother gave both to her, one to keep, one to pass on. Garrett's voice was thick. "She wanted you to have the smaller one now, the larger one when you turned 18. But I think she'd want you to have it tomorrow, for strength." Rose held both necklaces. The chains caught the light. "Can you help me?" Garrett's hands shook as he fastened both clasps. The crosses settled at Rose's throat. Light, comforting, doubled. Rose touched them. "I can feel her. She'd be so proud of you." Rose turned to the bookshelf, found Kate's Bible, old, pages dog-eared, passages underlined in multiple colors. She opened it randomly. The page fell to 1 Corinthians, chapter 13, verse 8. "Love never fails." The words were underlined 3 times. Kate's handwriting in the margin, for Rose, when she needs courage. 1 Cor 13, 4-8. Rose read the full passage aloud, her voice steady, strong. "Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud, it does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails." She closed the book, held it to her chest. "I'm scared about tomorrow. I know. What if I freeze? What if my voice stops working? Then I'll be there, right behind you, ready to catch you if you fall." Rose turned to face him. "Promise." "I promise. Not just words this time. Action." She nodded, set the Bible down, started to leave, then stopped. "Dad, yeah. Thank you for finally showing up." Garrett's voice broke. "Thank you for waiting." That night, Garrett couldn't sleep. 3 a.m. found him in his study, unable to shut off his brain, unable to stop thinking about tomorrow, about Rose feeding a room full of people who wanted to destroy her, about Principal Harlow, about the Whitmores, about all the old money families who saw Rose as an interloper. He pulled open his desk drawer. The one he never opened. The one with the lock. Inside was a file. Thick, dusty. Hadn't been touched in 10 years. Garrett pulled it out, opened it. Newspaper clippings, police reports, court documents, insurance settlements. The accident, May 15th, 2015. He'd been 30 years old. The company had just gone public. He'd made his first 100 million overnight. He'd been celebrating, drinking, too much. Kate had begged him not to drive, but he'd insisted. He was fine. He was invincible until he wasn't. The intersection, the red light he'd run, the sedan he'd hit, the impact. Garrett closed his eyes. He could still hear the sound of metal crunching, glass shattering, a woman screaming. When he'd stumbled out of his car, he'd seen them. The other car, crushed. A woman in the driver's seat, alive, screaming, covered in blood, and in the back seat, a child, 8 years old, blonde hair, blue dress, not moving, not breathing. Dead. The police had come. The ambulance. The lawyers. So many lawyers. Garrett had been arrested, charged with vehicular manslaughter, DUI, reckless endangerment. But money bought the best defense, the best lawyers, the best expert witnesses who testified that the other driver had been speeding, that maybe she'd run the light, that maybe it wasn't entirely Garrett's fault. The jury had acquitted him. The civil suit had been settled. $5 million. A fortune to most people. Pocket change to Garrett Kingsley. The mother had taken the money, had no choice. She had medical bills, no husband, no income. Her name had been Catherine Walsh. Her daughter's name had been Sophie. Garrett stared at the photograph in the police report. Sophie Walsh, 8 years old, blonde hair, pulled into pigtails, school photo, bright smile, dead because of him. He'd never met Catherine Walsh after the settlement. The lawyers had handled everything. He'd written the check and tried to forget, but now that name, Walsh, Principal Vivian Harlow, whose maiden name according to the Riverside website was Walsh, whose daughter had died 10 years ago, whose hatred of Rose seemed personal, visceral, beyond simple classism or greed. An eye for an eye, Garrett whispered. She didn't just want Rose expelled. She wanted Rose destroyed, humiliated, traumatized, the way her daughter had been destroyed. Because Rose was Garrett's daughter, 10 years old, the same age Sophie had been, alive when Sophie was dead. Catherine Walsh wasn't just protecting old money donors, she was getting revenge on the man who'd killed her child and walked away. By destroying his child, Garrett's hands trembled. The file fell from his fingers. Papers scattered across the desk. He had to tell Rose. Had to warn her. Had to, but how? How did he tell his daughter that the woman trying to ruin her life was doing it because he'd killed that woman's child? That this was his fault. All of it. That Rose was suffering because of him. Garrett's phone buzzed. A text from Hayes. Hearing moved to 9 a.m. tomorrow. Courthouse. Not school. District judge presiding. This is bigger than we thought. Harlow must have connections. Garrett typed back. Understood. Will be ready. But he wasn't sure that was true, because now he understood what they were really facing. Not just a corrupt principal. A grieving mother with nothing left to lose. Monday morning arrived cold and sharp. Rose woke to darkness. 4:30 a.m. Too early, but sleep was impossible. She dressed carefully. The white dress Kate had bought her 2 years ago. The one she'd been saving. Both silver crosses at her throat. Her hands steady despite the fear coiling in her stomach. Downstairs, Garrett was already awake, dressed in his sharpest charcoal suit. War armor. They didn't speak, just moved around each other in the kitchen. Coffee brewing, toast burning slightly. The smell of char mixing with the rich coffee aroma. At 6 a.m., Hayes arrived with his team, 4 lawyers, all business. They reviewed strategy one final time at the dining table. The old wood was cold under Rose's palms. Remember, Hayes said, Eyes on the judge. Breathe through the panic. Tell the truth. I'll handle the rest. Rose nodded, her throat too tight for words. At 7:30 they loaded into 3 black SUVs. Security front and back. Hayes wasn't taking chances. The drive to Suffolk County Courthouse took 20 minutes through morning traffic. The city was waking up. Coffee shops opening. People hurrying to work. Normal Monday. Except nothing about today was normal. The parking lot was already packed when they arrived. News vans, camera crews, protesters with signs. Some signs read, "Protect our children from thieves." Others read, "Justice for Rose. Believe survivors." The crowd surged as their vehicle pulled up. The noise hit like a physical wall. Rose's breathing quickened. The familiar spasm started in her shoulder. Her vision tunneled. Garrett's hand covered hers. Warm, solid. "Look at me." She did. "You're not alone. I'm right here. Every step." Rose nodded. Hayes opened the door. "Stay close. Don't answer any questions. Eyes forward. Keep moving." They stepped out into chaos. The noise was overwhelming. Shouting, camera shutters clicking like locusts, questions overlapping until words became meaningless sound. "Rose, did you steal the watch?" "Mr. Kingsley, are you paying off witnesses? Is it true Rose has a criminal record from St. Agnes?" Rose's vision blurred. Too many people. Too close. The smell of coffee breath and cigarette smoke and unwashed bodies pressed together. Then Garrett's hand touched her back. "Steady, grounding. Keep walking," he murmured. They pushed through. Hayes and his team formed a barrier. Security kept the crowd back, but barely. Rose kept her eyes on the courthouse doors ahead. Just 30 feet. 20. 10. Someone threw something. An egg. It hit the pavement near Rose's feet. Yellow yolk splattered across her white shoes. Garrett didn't flinch, just kept his hand on Rose's back, kept moving forward. They reached the doors, pushed through. The heavy doors cut off the noise like a guillotine blade. Inside the courthouse was blessedly quiet, just the echo of footsteps on marble. The smell of old paper and lemon cleaning solution, cool air from ancient air conditioning. But ahead, the courtroom hummed with voices. The gallery was filling up, hundreds of people. Rose stopped walking. "I can't." "You can," Hayes said firmly. "You've already done the hard part. You survived St. Agnes. You survived being framed. This is just talking about it. That's the hard part. Then we make it easier." Hayes knelt down, eye level, his expensive suit creaking. "Listen to me. When you're up there, you don't have to look at the crowd. Look at the judge. Look at your father. Look at me. Pretend it's just us in the room." "But it's not." "No, but your voice doesn't know that. Your truth doesn't change based on how many people are listening." Rose's hands gripped both crosses at her throat. The metal was warm now from her skin. Hayes stood, adjusted his tie. "Time to show them what truth looks like." They walked to the courtroom doors. Hayes pushed them open. 300 faces turned to stare. The room was massive, high ceilings, dark wood paneling, built to intimidate. The air was warm but dry. The smell of old wood and nervous sweat hung heavy. Judge Patricia Coleman sat at the raised bench, 62 years old. Iron gray hair pulled back severely. Expression carved from granite. Principal Harlow sat with her legal team, 4 lawyers in expensive suits, Marcus Thornton leading them, confident, smug. The smell of expensive cologne drifted from their table. The gallery was packed, parents, teachers, students, press, every eye on Rose. She walked down the center aisle. Her legs felt like water, each step echoing. Garrett walked behind her, close enough to catch her if she fell. They reached the front. Hayes directed Rose to a chair, isolated in the center of the room, like an island, the defendant's chair. Rose sat, The wood was cold through her thin dress. Her hands gripped the armrests. Judge Coleman banged her gavel, the sound like a gunshot. This hearing will come to order. The room silenced instantly. We are here to address accusations of theft against Rosalie Kingsley, age 10 student at Riverside Academy. The school has filed for immediate expulsion based on theft of valuable property. Coleman's voice was neutral, giving nothing away. Mr. Hayes, you represent the child. Hayes stood. I do your honor. Principal Harlow, you're represented by Marcus Thornton Rose. Smooth, practiced. Marcus Thornton, your honor. Thornton and Associates. Very well, opening statements. But Thornton, you may begin. Thornton approached the bench, every movement calculated. Your honor, this is a straightforward case. A troubled child from a difficult background stole valuable property from a fellow student. We have evidence, witnesses. The item was found in her possession. We're not here to destroy this child. We're here to protect the other students at Riverside Academy and maintain the integrity of our institution. He clicked a remote. A screen lowered behind the judge's bench. Photos appeared. Rose's locker, the watch inside. Rose being handcuffed, her face twisted in fear. This child has documented behavioral issues, food hoarding, tic disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder. She comes from St. Agnes Home for Children, a facility currently under federal investigation for systemic abuse. We sympathize with her struggles, truly we do. But sympathy doesn't excuse theft. It doesn't excuse violating the trust of her peers and this institution. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Rose's face burned. Every word a knife. She wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor. Her shoulders started twitching. Thornton continued. The school recommends immediate expulsion and mandatory psychiatric evaluation, not as punishment, but for her own good and the safety of others. Some environments are simply not appropriate for children with Miss Kingsley's challenges. He sat down, looking satisfied. Judge Coleman turned to Hayes. Your opening statement. Hayes stood, buttoned his jacket, walked to the center of the room. His voice came out quiet, conversational, like he was chatting with a friend. Your Honor, I've been practicing law for 30 years. I've seen a lot of cases, a lot of guilty people trying to look innocent, a lot of innocent people who can't prove it. He paused, let the silences stretch. This isn't one of those cases. He clicked his own remote. The screen changed. Rose's handwritten notebook appeared. Timeline, evidence, names, timestamps. This is a 10-year-old child who built a criminal investigation better than most police departments. Not because she's disturbed, because she's brilliant, because she knew she was innocent, and because she refused to stay silent. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Hayes continued. Rose Kingsley didn't steal anything. She was framed, systematically, deliberately, by students and staff who wanted her gone because she didn't fit their vision of what Riverside Academy should be. And I can prove it with video evidence, with witness testimony, with documentation that will show this court exactly what happened. Thornton jumped up. Objection. This is inflammatory. Save it for testimony, counselor. Judge Coleman's voice cut like a blade. Continue, Mr. Hayes. Thank you, Your Honor. Over the next hours, we will present irrefutable evidence proving that Rose Kingsley is not a thief. She's a survivor who refused to be silenced. And that's what really scares the people trying to destroy her. Because if she can fight back, if she can win, then their entire system of privilege and control crumbles. Hayes sat down. The room buzzed, whispers everywhere. The sound like wind through dry leaves. Judge Coleman banged her gavel. Prosecution, call your first witness. Thornton stood. We call Principal Vivienne Harlow. Harlow walked to the witness stand, poised, perfect. Every inch the respected educator. She wore a navy suit, pearl necklace, hair immaculate. She was sworn in. Thornton began. Principal Harlow, how long have you worked at Riverside Academy? 15 years, the last 7 as principal. Her voice was cultured, refined. And in your professional opinion, did Rose Kingsley steal Scarlett Whitmore's watch? I believe she did. The evidence is clear. The watch was found in her locker. There's no other explanation. Can you describe Miss Kingsley's behavior during her time at Riverside? Harlow's expression turned sympathetic, concerned. Rose has struggled significantly. She hoards food in her locker, has frequent emotional outbursts, isolates from other students. We've tried to help her, provided counseling, extra support, but her behavioral issues have escalated rather than improved. Lies. Every word carefully constructed lies. Rose's nails dug into the chair arms. The wood was smooth, polished, hard. Thornton nodded. And when the watch was discovered, Rose became violent, tried to run. It took Officer Drake and myself to restrain her safely. She was clearly guilty and trying to escape consequences. More lies. Rose wanted to scream, but her voice was locked somewhere deep inside. Her throat closed, her breathing shallow. Thornton finished, sat down looking pleased. Hayes approached Harlow, his expression pleasant, almost friendly, but his eyes were cold. Principal Harlow, you mentioned Rose hoards food. Yes. Why do you think she does that? Harlow hesitated. Behavioral issues stemming from her past. Behavioral issues, not trauma from being starved at St. Agnes for 3 consecutive days as punishment when she was 7 years old. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. I couldn't say for certain. You couldn't say, even though her file clearly documents this incident, even though St. Agnes is now under federal investigation for systematic child abuse. Thornton stood. Objection. Relevance. Goes to motive and context, Your Honor, Hayes said smoothly. I'll allow it. Answer the question, Principal Harlow. Harlow's composure cracked, just slightly. A bead of sweat appeared at her temple despite the cool air. Her past is unfortunate, but it doesn't excuse theft. No, it doesn't excuse theft, but it does explain behavior you labeled as disturbed. Doesn't it? A child who was starved might hoard food. A child who was locked in dark closet might have anxiety. These aren't character flaws, they're survival mechanisms. I suppose. You suppose. Hayes pulled out a document. This is the security footage deletion log from your office computer. It shows you personally deleted the hallway camera footage from Thursday morning at 8:53 a.m. Why? The color drained from Harlow's face. The courtroom was so quiet, Rose could hear someone's watch ticking. The system automatically archives. This wasn't automatic. This was manual deletion. 38 minutes after the watch was discovered. Why delete footage that could prove Rose's innocence? Silence. Unless you knew the footage would prove the opposite, that Rose was framed, that this entire incident was manufactured. That's absurd. Is it? Hayes pulled out the memory card, held it up. Because we have backup footage from a source you didn't know existed, would you like to see it? Thornton was on his feet. Your Honor, I'd like to see this footage. Judge Coleman interrupted, her voice sharp, interested. Hayes nodded to his assistant. The courtroom lights dimmed, the screen lit up, the security video played, crystal clear, undeniable. Callum Ashford planting the watch, his face clearly visible. The timestamp, 7:44 a.m. Scarlett Whitmore, practicing her shocked expression in the bathroom mirror, rehearsing her lines. The audio clear. Bye-bye charity case. Principal Harlow in her office, her fingers flying over the keyboard. The screen visible in the reflection of her window. Delete all clicked, files vanishing. Every moment of the conspiracy, recorded, preserved, undeniable. The gallery erupted. Shouts, gasps, parents standing, reporters scrambling for phones. The smell of sweat intensified as people pressed forward. Judge Coleman's gavel banged repeatedly. Order, I will have order. But Rose barely heard it. Because for the first time since Thursday, people were seeing the truth, and the truth was setting her free. Principal Harlow sat frozen in the witness chair, her perfect composure shattered, tears streaming down her face, mascara running black lines down her cheeks. Hayes turned back to her, his voice quiet now, almost gentle. Would you like to revise your testimony? Principal Harlow. Harlow's mouth opened, closed. Her hands trembled on the armrests. Let me help you. You deleted that footage because you knew Rose was innocent. You deleted it because wealthy donors like the Whitmores wanted the scholarship student removed. You deleted it because maintaining your school's social order mattered more than a child's well-being. That's not, Harlow's voice cracked. You don't understand the pressure. The pressure, Hayes' voice rose now, sharp. A 10-year-old child was handcuffed, publicly humiliated, traumatized, and you're talking about pressure from donors. Harlow sobbed openly now. The mask completely gone. They would have pulled their donations. The school would have suffered financially. So you sacrificed the child to protect your budget. The words hung in the air like smoke. Harlow's shoulders shook. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I just wanted her to transfer quietly. But then Scarlett's plan spiraled, and I couldn't stop it without admitting I was involved in. She stopped, realizing she just confessed. Her lawyers surrounded her immediately, whispering urgently. But it was too late. Hayes nodded. No further questions, Your Honor. Thornton tried to salvage something during redirect, but Harlow was done. She stumbled through half answers, contradicting herself, digging deeper. Finally, Judge Coleman dismissed her. Step down, Principal Harlow. Harlow stood, her legs barely holding her. As she passed Rose's chair, she stopped, looked down at Rose with red, swollen eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered, so quiet only Rose could hear. I'm so sorry. Rose looked up at her. This woman who tried to destroy her. This woman who'd chosen money over mercy. So am I, Rose said quietly. Sorry that you became what you hated. Sorry that you let grief turn you into someone your daughter wouldn't recognize. Harlow flinched like she'd been slapped, stumbled to her seat. Hayes called Mr. Hawthorne next. Edwin walked to the stand, nervous but determined. He testified clearly. The backup footage, the threats he'd received to stay silent, how Rose had convinced him to do the right thing anyway. Cross-examination was brutal. Thornton attacked his credibility, his motives, but Edwin didn't break, didn't waver. I kept that footage because I knew it was wrong, Edwin said firmly. And I'm testifying because that little girl deserves justice, more than I deserve comfort. Then Hayes called witnesses who'd known Rose. Mrs. Sullivan from the neighborhood, Miss Adelaide from the library, Mrs. Rosa, the housekeeper. Each one painted a picture, not of a disturbed thief, but of a traumatized child trying her best, working hard, being kind, surviving. By noon, the case was clear. Rose was innocent, framed, targeted because she was different. Judge Coleman called lunch recess. The gallery emptied into the hallways. Rose stayed in her seat, frozen, numb. Garrett knelt beside her. How are you holding up? I don't know. Rose's voice sounded far away. Is it over? Not yet. Hayes wants you to testify. Just briefly. Let the judge hear from you directly. Rose's stomach dropped. I have to. Only if you're ready. If not, we have enough evidence. No. Rose cut him off. I need to do this for me and for everyone else they might hurt if I don't. Hayes approached. Rose, the judge wants to hear from you, but I'll keep it short, just a few questions. You just tell the truth. Can you do that? Rose nodded. After lunch, the courtroom felt different, heavier, like everyone knew what was coming. But Hayes, do you have additional witnesses? Judge Coleman asked. One more, Your Honor. We call Rosalie Kingsley. The room went silent. Rose stood. Her legs felt like water. Each step toward the witness stand felt like climbing a mountain. She was sworn in. Her hand shook on the Bible. The leather was old, worn, smooth under her palm. Hayes approached, his expression gentle. Rose, can you tell us what happened Thursday morning? Rose's throat closed. The words trapped. She looked at the crowd. Hundreds of faces, all staring, all waiting. Her vision blurred. The room spun. Then she found Garrett's eyes. He sat in the front row, leaning forward, his face open, encouraging. His lips moved. She couldn't hear over the roar in her ears, but she could read the words. You've got this. Rose took a breath. The air conditioning hummed. Cool air on her hot face. She let it out slow. I got to school at 7:45. Her voice came out small, but clear. Harrison dropped me off. I went to my locker, number 304. When I opened it, there was a watch, wrapped in white paper. I didn't put it there. What did you think when you saw it? I was scared. I knew someone was trying to hurt me, because I don't belong at Riverside. Not really. I'm not rich. I'm not from an old family. Her voice cracked. I'm just a foster kid who got lucky. Do you remember what happened next? Scarlett started yelling that her watch was missing. Everyone came over. Principal Harlow called Officer Drake. Rose's voice shook. He put handcuffs on me. Really tight. They hurt. She held up her wrists. Faint bruises still visible. Yellow-green now. Healing but not healed. The gallery murmured, sympathetic now instead of hostile. What did that feel like, the handcuffs? Rose closed her eyes. Like St. Agnes, like the punishment closet, like being trapped with no way out. Can you tell us about St. Agnes? Rose opened her eyes, looked at the judge, not the crowd. When we were bad at St. Agnes, they'd lock us in closets, sometimes for days. No food, no water, no light. Just darkness. And if you cried, they added more hours. So you learned not to cry, not to make noise, not to exist. The courtroom was completely silent. Even the reporters had stopped typing. The handcuffs felt like that, like no one cared if I was innocent, like I was going back to that place. Hayes' voice gentled. Rose, did you steal Scarlett's watch? No. Have you ever stolen anything? No. At St. Agnes we had nothing. But Kate, my mom, Kate, she taught me that stealing is wrong. That even when you have nothing, you don't take what belongs to someone else. You survive with dignity. Hayes nodded. Rose, I need to ask you something difficult. Principal Harlow said you have behavioral issues, that you hoard food. Is that true? Rose's face flushed. Yes. Why? Because I'm scared. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. At St. Agnes, they used food as punishment. Once they didn't feed me for 3 days because I hid bread under my mattress. I thought I was going to die. So now I save food, hide it. Just in case someone decides I don't deserve to eat again. Just in case what? Just in case Garrett, my dad, sends me back. Just in case this is temporary, like everyone says. Just in case I'm too broken to keep. Tears streamed down her face. She didn't wipe them away. The silence in the room was absolute. Heavy, suffocating. Hayes' voice was barely above a whisper. Rose, do you think you're broken? Rose looked at him, then at Garrett, then at the judge. I used to, but Kate told me something before she died. She said broken things can be fixed, or they can be strong in different ways, like bones that break and heal stronger than before. Rose touched the crosses at her throat. I'm not broken anymore. I'm just bent, learning to straighten again. Do you feel strong now? Rose glanced around the courtroom, at Mr. Hawthorne, at Mrs. Sullivan, at Miss Adelaide, at all the faces that had shifted from judgment to compassion. I'm learning to be, with help. Hayes smiled. No further questions, Your Honor. Thornton approached for cross-examination, his expression hard, calculating but less confident now. Miss Kingsley, you say you didn't steal the watch, but you have a documented history of taking things without permission, don't you? Objection. Hayes was on his feet. What history? At St. Agnes, you were punished multiple times for hoarding food. Correct. Rose's voice went small again. Yes. So you do take things without permission. I took bread crusts from the trash to survive. That's not the same as stealing an $18,000 watch. Isn't it taking what doesn't belong to you? Something inside Rose snapped. She stood up. The action so sudden, Thornton stepped back. No. Her voice rang clear, strong. My situation is that I survived. I survived starvation and abuse and people like you who look at hurt children and see criminals instead of victims. Her eyes blazed. I didn't steal that watch, But even if I had every problem you're trying to pin on me, I would still deserve better than being handcuffed and humiliated in front of my entire school for something I didn't do." The gallery erupted in applause. Spontaneous, genuine. Judge Coleman's gavel struck once. Order. But even she looked impressed. Rose sat down. Her heart pounded. But she felt something new. Power. Thornton tried a few more questions, but Rose didn't break, didn't crumble. She answered every attack with quiet dignity. Finally, he gave up. No further questions. Rose stepped down from the witness stand. As she passed Garrett, he reached out. She took his hand, squeezed. They sat together in the front row. Judge Coleman reviewed her notes. The room held its breath. The air conditioning kicked on louder. A blast of cold air. Then she looked up. "Before I make my ruling, I need to address something." She looked directly at Principal Harlow. "This case represents a catastrophic failure, not just of Riverside Academy, but of the adults responsible for protecting vulnerable children." She turned to Rose. "Miss Kingsley, in my 35 years on the bench, I have rarely witnessed such courage from someone so young. You were failed by the very institutions meant to protect you. You were targeted, framed, and traumatized. Yet you fought back with intelligence, determination, and grace." Coleman's voice hardened. "The charges against Rose Kingsley are hereby dismissed. Completely and permanently. All records expunged. This incident will be removed from her academic file as if it never existed." Relief flooded through Rose so strong her knees buckled. Garrett caught her, held her up, but Judge Coleman wasn't done. "Principal Vivian Harlow, you are immediately suspended from Riverside Academy. Criminal charges of evidence tampering, conspiracy to commit fraud, child endangerment, and accepting bribes will be referred to the district attorney." Harlow's face crumpled. Her lawyers scrambled, whispering urgently, "Callum Ashford, you are 18 years old, an adult. You will be tried as such. Charges include evidence planting, conspiracy, harassment of a minor, and filing a false police report. Bail is denied. You will be remanded to custody immediately." Two bailiffs moved toward Callum in the back row. He tried to run. They caught him easily, handcuffed him. The same cold steel that had bitten Rose's wrists. Justice tasted sweet. "Scarlett Whitmore, as a minor, you will face juvenile charges. However, given your cooperation during this hearing, I am reducing your sentence to 200 hours community service and mandatory counseling." Scarlett stood, tears streaming. "Your Honor, may I say something?" "Proceed." Scarlett walked down the aisle, stopped in front of Rose. "Rose, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Callum threatened me, and I was scared and weak, and I hurt you to save myself. That's unforgivable. But I promise you, I swear I'll spend the rest of my life making sure no one else gets hurt like you did." Rose stared at her. This girl who'd made her life hell, who'd stood by during the handcuffs, who'd called her trash. Part of Rose wanted to reject the apology, to make Scarlett suffer. But Rose had learned something these past days. Holding on to anger felt like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. "Thank you for finally telling the truth," Rose said quietly. "I don't forgive you yet. Maybe I will someday. But for now, just do better. Be better." Scarlett nodded, wiped her eyes. "I will. I promise I will." She returned to her seat. Then Garrett stood. "Your Honor, may I address the court?" Coleman looked surprised. "Mr. Kingsley, this is highly irregular. I know, but there's something everyone needs to understand about why this happened, about why Principal Harlow targeted my daughter." Thornton shot to his feet. "Objection. Mr. Kingsley is not a witness." "I'll allow it." Coleman's eyes narrowed. "But make it brief." Garrett walked to the center of the room, his face pale, his hands trembling. 10 years ago, I made a terrible mistake. I drove drunk. I hit another car. I killed an 8-year-old girl named Sophie Walsh. The courtroom erupted. Gasps, shouts, reporters typing frantically. Rose stared at her father, shock flooding through her. Garrett continued. I was arrested, charged, but I had the best lawyers money could buy. They got me acquitted on a technicality. I paid $5 million in a civil settlement. Then I tried to forget it ever happened. His voice broke, but Catherine Walsh couldn't forget. Sophie was her only child, and I took her. Then I walked away free. He looked at Principal Harlow. Catherine Walsh changed her name, became Vivian Harlow. Rose herself became principal at Riverside. Waited. For 10 years she waited for me to have something she could take from me the way I took from her. Harlow sobbed openly, nodding. When I adopted Rose, Catherine saw her chance. Not just any child, my daughter, 10 years old, the same age Sophie had been, alive when Sophie was dead. Garrett's tears fell freely now. This is my fault, all of it. Rose suffered because of what I did a decade ago. Because I was too drunk and too arrogant to call a cab. Because I killed an innocent child and used money to escape consequences. The courtroom was utterly silent. Garrett turned to Rose. Rose, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. Should have warned you. Should have. Rose stood, walked to him. Everyone watching. She looked up at her father. This man who just confessed to killing a child, to causing all her suffering. She should hate him. She should walk away. Instead, she took his hand. You made a terrible mistake, and Catherine lost everything, and I got caught in between. Rose's voice was steady, clear. But holding on to that pain, letting it destroy more lives doesn't bring Sophie back. It just creates more suffering. She looked at Principal Harlow, at Catherine Walsh. I'm sorry for what my father did to you, for your loss, for the pain you've carried for 10 years. Sophie deserved better. You deserved better. But I didn't deserve what you did to me. And Sophie wouldn't want her death used as an excuse to hurt other children. Catherine Vivian Harlow stared at Rose, this 10-year-old child offering more grace than any adult in the room. You're right, Harlow whispered. Sophie wouldn't. She was kind, like you, and I dishonored her memory by trying to hurt you. Judge Coleman watched this exchange, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke. Mr. Kingsley, your confession is noted. However, you are legally acquitted. I cannot retry you for that case. But know this, you will carry the weight of your actions for the rest of your life, as you should. Garrett nodded. I know, Your Honor, and I will. As for Principal Harlow Catherine Walsh, I understand grief. I understand rage at injustice, but understanding is not excusing. You allowed your pain to victimize an innocent child. That is unforgivable. Coleman banged her gavel. This court is adjourned. Sentencing hearing for all defendants will be held Friday at 9 a.m.